Hello, I'm John Daniel, and welcome to Murder 1917 Massena Style. On October 3rd, 1917, my hometown of Massena was turned upside down with the murder of 22-year-old Bessie White, who was the maid of the superintendent of schools, E.F. McDonald. And today, we're going on a tour of her last hours and to talk about the case. Dressed in the clothes of the time period, Betsy started walking here in Elm Circle after leaving the McDonald residence to go see her friend, Miss Mabel Jesmer. She wanted Mabel to go along with her to downtown Massena to do some shopping and maybe take in a movie. But Miss Jesmer decided to stay home that rainy night. So Miss White started walking here downtown. She slowly went downtown here. We're here in downtown Massena now, following Miss White's final steps. This was at one time the W.L. Smith hardware store, where Miss Smith went in and purchased some lamp wicks. And she also went to the George's Market to purchase some salt pork. And we're going to cross the street now. Across from the old W.L. Smith store at one time was the old Star Theater in 1917. She went in and watched the movie in 1917, and the last person to see her living was Mrs. Arthur Revere, the ticket seller. And she finally went down this path past the town hall and many other buildings that are now not around anymore, back to Elm Circle to meet her destiny. We're continuing down Main Street here, following Miss White's path back home. And doing this video is not to make Massena look bad in any manner whatsoever. I'm doing this because I feel justice was not served in 1917. And whoever murdered her should have gone to jail. A few years ago, a friend of mine wrote this, who knows a lot about the murder case, and I'm going to read this while I'm walking back to Elm Circle. To truly understand Betsy's murder and why it was not solved, one must also consider the socio-political landscape of Massena in the early 20th century. This could take volumes and not permit detailed analysis. In fact, this video, there's so much I could speak about, but I can't. This murder was so sophisticated at the time, the media went crazy on it, and there were many rumors of different people. In fact, in the 1950s, a newspaper article was written stating the name of the murderer, but we don't know if that's true or not. So over time, this murder has become a legend in Massena with many different stories that have been twisted and turned. Over time, addresses have changed here in Elm Circle and Bridges Avenue, so it's very difficult to pinpoint who lived where in 1917. But I'm going to read this, which I wrote a couple years ago about the murder case. Shortly before 9 p.m., Frank Bradley and Louis Schriggins, hopefully I pronounced his name right, two employees of the Shamoklin Lumber and Construction Company responsible for Bridges Avenue High School project over there, were walking home from the village, which would be here. They took coming home from the village, coming home from downtown area. They followed Betsy's path from the village south on Main Street and then went west on Bridges Avenue until they split up at the corner of Bridges Avenue and Elm Circle, which is right here. Bradley turned left towards his 3 Elm Circle home. He heard a queer noise, just though somebody had something over their mouth from a speaking distance, and 2 groans were also heard. Since the sounds came from this construction yard, Bradley believed the sounds were those of some boys making some big noise to scare them, or possibly some cats. Shortly after, Schriggins, I'm sorry I mispronounced his name, passed the school building. He entered his home and heard the clock strike 9 p.m. exactly. Several others, including Mrs. D.E. Patterson, Assistant Postmaster James Berry, and Mr. E.F. McDonald, also passed the school building that evening and did not notice anything unusual. We're now at the old site of the old Elm Circle water fountain. Today it's a big flower pot. It's been like this for years. But in 1917, there was a beautiful fountain here, and you can still see signs of the fountain where the water went in at the pipes. And when bloodhounds were brought in to investigate the murder, they took a scent off a neckerchief handkerchief, and they came from over there where the murder was, came to this fountain, and then they went over to the corner of E.F. McDonald's house where Betsy White was the maid. Right now, I'm in Elm Circle in Bridges Avenue area, and this sidewalk, she met someone here. She may have known or not known on that rainy night in 1917. Betsy was lunged to death and brutally murdered, and today her murder is still unsolved. I'm going to walk this way and try to talk as best as I can. The old high school was here. It was under construction. The old Bridges Avenue High School was demolished in 1986, and she was dragged from that sidewalk. Maybe, we don't know what's true or not. She may have gone off the sidewalk and gone over. She may have known the person. We don't know today. We'll probably never know. But she was dragged after being beaten over to here, where the school used to be, a mere 170 feet from the house she was made in for the superintendent of schools, right there. We're about this. I'm standing about probably about where the murder happened. Yeah, right here, where the body was found the next day by work crews. We're at 128 Main Street, and here Miss Emma Page, a housekeeper, heard 1 or 2 shrieks. This house at the time was owned by the Ames family, and like everyone in the neighborhood who heard the screams, nobody went out to investigate. It was not until the next morning that Bessie White's body was found here on Bridges Avenue. And there was a loud commotion when workers showed up who were constructing the school that Superintendent of Schools, E.F. McDonald, heard. He came out of his house. This was the story he told for the investigation. He came out of his house, went over to where Betsy was murdered, saw the body, but he didn't recognize her because she had been brutally beaten so bad in the head that she was unrecognizable. So he went back to his house and found that no breakfast had been made. She wasn't in her room, she wasn't in the house, and he went back outside only to realize that it was his maid that had been murdered. There were all kinds of items scattered in the area here of the murder case. I'm going to read this for you, what I wrote. Scattered around the small space and construction site were a pair of galoshes, packages near the edge of the sidewalk right here, what was believed to be a piece of knit underwear, her umbrella stuffed under a wheelbarrow, and her hat stuffed in the holes of some nearby bricks. Police also found a red bandana handkerchief, which police investigators believed was used by the killer to gag Betsy prior to the attack. An autopsy determined that she may have been raped, or that rape had been attempted, and that the cause of death was a fractured skull caused by blunt trauma to the head. We're now at St. Patrick's Cemetery in Brazier, New York, nearby Massena. Heading in, we see Miss White's grave. Big cemetery. Brazier was a big community at one time. Down here. Grave down here. There. Her grave, Bessie. This is the family plot. She has a little old gravestone here. Bessie. Bessie White is quietly buried here in Brazier Falls, New York, but her murder continues to be Massena's biggest murder mystery of all time. If anyone has any information about Betsy White in this murder case, please contact me. All information will be kept confidential through me, and hopefully we can find who killed Miss White. Thank you for watching.